Welcome, my beautiful viewers, to this amazing journey we are about to embark on together. It's an absolute joy to have you here today as we dive into some incredible passages from the Bible, Genesis 20 to 21 and Galatians 4. These texts might feel like ancient words, but they contain powerful truths that resonate deeply with our modern lives. The stories and lessons that unfold in these chapters are not just history, they are messages of faith, grace, and freedom that can transform the way we live today. So, grab a cozy spot, open your hearts, and let's explore how these timeless scriptures apply to our world right now. In Genesis 20, we find Abraham traveling to the region of Gerar. Now, Abraham was a man chosen by God to be the father of many nations, but even he had his moments of weakness. He fears for his life because his wife, Sarah, is very beautiful, and he worries that King Abimelech might kill him to take her. So, Abraham tells a half-truth, saying that Sarah is his sister, which leads to the king taking Sarah into his household. But then, God steps in, he speaks to King Abimelech in a dream and warns him not to touch Sarah. The king returns Sarah to Abraham, and God blesses Abimelech and his household as a result. What's amazing here is that God intervenes even in our messes, showing that his promises and protection never fail, even when our faith falters. Fast forward to Genesis 21, then we see one of the most joyful and miraculous events, the birth of Isaac, the promised son of Abraham and Sarah. Sarah, who had been barren for years, laughs in disbelief at the thought of becoming a mother in her old age, but God fulfills his promise. Isaac's birth is not just a fulfillment of a personal promise to Abraham and Sarah, it's a symbol of God's faithfulness to his people across generations. However, the chapter also tells a story of tension and heartbreak. Hagar, Sarah's servant, and her son Ishmael are sent away after Isaac's birth. It's a tough moment, but God once again intervenes. In the wilderness, when Hagar is on the verge of giving up, God opens her eyes to a well of water and promises to make a great nation out of Ishmael too. Now, what does all of this mean for us in our everyday lives? The stories in Genesis 20 to 21 are rich with themes that are incredibly relevant today. 1. God's promises stand, even when we doubt. Okay, how often do we, like Abraham, take matters into our own hands because we fear the worst? Whether it's in our careers, relationships, or personal struggles, we sometimes try to control outcomes out of fear. But Genesis 20 reminds us that even when our faith is shaky, God's promises don't waver. He steps in to protect and guide us, often in ways we can't even anticipate. 2. The power of waiting and trusting. We see Sarah waited decades for the birth of Isaac. In today's world, we often want instant results, whether it's success, healing, or change. But God works on his own timeline, and when we trust in his timing, the results are far more miraculous than anything we could imagine. Isaac's birth is a testament to the beauty of waiting on God. 3. God sees the unseen and forgotten, as Hagar and Ishmael's story is particularly poignant. In a world that often overlooks the marginalized or casts aside those who are not at the center of the narrative, God shows that he sees and cares for everyone. Hagar thought she was abandoned, but God came to her in the wilderness and provided what she needed. This speaks volumes to those of us who feel overlooked or isolated. God has not forgotten you. Now, let's jump into the New Testament with Galatians 4, where the Apostle Paul draws a profound connection between the stories of Sarah and Hagar. Paul uses these two women as symbolic representations of two covenants, one leading to freedom and the other to slavery. In Galatians 4, Paul explains that Hagar, the servant, represents the Old Covenant, which is based on the law given at Mount Sinai. This law, while holy, leads to slavery because no one can perfectly keep it. It's like being trapped in a cycle of trying to earn God's favor through our own efforts, constantly striving but never truly free. Sarah, on the other hand, represents the new covenant of grace through Christ. Isaac, the child of promise, was born not out of human effort but through God's miraculous intervention. Paul uses this to illustrate that we are children of the promise, not of slavery. As believers in Christ, we are no longer bound by the law. Instead, we are free to live in the grace and freedom that Jesus provides. This freedom doesn't mean we live without purpose or discipline, but that our relationship with God is based on his love and grace, not on a list of rules we must keep to earn his favor. Galatians 4 highlights the following in today's world. 1. Freedom from the burden of perfection. In today's world, there's immense pressure to be perfect, whether it's achieving the perfect career, maintaining a flawless appearance, or having the ideal family. But Galatians 4 reminds us that we are not slaves to perfectionism. We don't have to earn our worth or God's love through our achievements or outward appearances. We are already loved and accepted because of Christ. 2. Living in grace, not legalism. Many people today, even within religious communities, can get caught in legalistic thinking, believing that following certain rules or traditions makes them more righteous. But Paul's message in Galatians 4 is clear: we are free from the law's bondage. The love of God sets us free to live in joy and peace, not in fear of punishment or failure. 3. Trusting in God's plan over our efforts. The story of Isaac's miraculous birth reminds us that God's promises don't depend on human effort. In our fast-paced, results-driven society, it's easy to feel like we have to make everything happen on our own. But Galatians 4 tells us that the most important things, our salvation, our identity, our purpose, are gifts from God, not things we can achieve through striving. Genesis 20-21 and Galatians 4 might seem like stories from two different worlds, but they are deeply intertwined and incredibly relevant to us today. These chapters remind us that God's promises are sure, His grace is sufficient, and we are free to live in the fullness of His love. Whether you're waiting on a promise, struggling with fear, or feeling trapped by expectations, these scriptures invite you to trust God and live in the freedom He has provided. So, as we wrap up, take a deep breath and remember that you are a child of the promise. God is working in your life, bending the universe in ways you can't always see, but His faithfulness never fails. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Let's continue to grow in faith, trust, and freedom together. Stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next video.